a dream home, a quiet neighborhood, a beautiful family, and a letter, postmarked anonymously, that would turn comfort into paranoia and sanctuary into surveillance. This isn't a horror movie. This is a real unsolved case. No arrests, no names, no closure, just a question. Picture the perfect suburban street, manicured lawns, children playing, the scent of barbecues drifting through summer air. Now imagine that idyllic scene hiding something sinister, someone watching, waiting, riding. This is the story of psychological warfare waged through the Postal Service, a campaign of terror that lasted years, cost a family their dream home, and remains unsolved to this day. The perpetrator was never caught, never identified, never stopped. What makes this case particularly chilling isn't just the threats, it's the intimate knowledge the writer possessed, knowledge that should have been impossible to obtain. Who was the watcher? Welcome to Dark Crimson Files. The Dream House. It started like a dream. In 2014, Derek and Maria Broaddus purchased what they thought was their forever home, a stunning 6-bedroom Dutch colonial at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. Westfield is the kind of suburb where people leave doors unlocked, where neighbors wave, where time slows down. The Broadduses were planning renovations. Their children were excited. Maria had grown up in the area. Everything felt right. Until the first letter arrived. The house at 657 Boulevard was everything the Broadduses wanted. Built in 1905, it was a piece of architectural history with modern potential. At $1.3 million, it represented their life savings and their future. Derek worked in insurance. Maria was an interior designer. They had 3 young children who were already choosing bedrooms and planning sleepovers. The previous owners, the Woods family, had lived there peacefully for over 20 years. The neighborhood was straight out of a Norman Rockwell painting. Crime was virtually non-existent. The biggest controversy might be someone's lawn care or Christmas decorations. Maria felt a special connection to the area. She'd grown up nearby and had always dreamed of raising her family in Westfield. This wasn't just a house purchase, it was a homecoming. The closing went smoothly. The Woods family was warm and welcoming, providing recommendations for contractors and local services. They spoke of wonderful neighbors and community barbecues. For 3 blissful days, the Broadduses felt they'd found their slice of paradise. The first letter. The envelope was addressed simply, to the new owner. Inside was a typewritten letter, and it wasn't welcoming. It began, 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now. I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. The letter mentioned specific renovations and, chillingly, the names and birth order of the Broaddus children. Information never made public. It ended with, "Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested?" They thought it was a prank. Until the second letter arrived, then a third, each one more threatening, each one more obsessed. June 5, 2014. Maria was alone at the house, meeting with contractors. The mail slot clattered, an ordinary sound that would soon become terrifying. The envelope was plain white, no return address. The new owner, 657 Boulevard, written in careful script. Inside, a typewritten message that began politely but quickly turned sinister. The writer claimed a generational connection to the house, speaking of it as if it were alive, breathing, waiting. But the real shock came in the details. The writer knew about planned renovations that hadn't been publicly discussed. Worse, they knew the names and ages of the Broaddus children, information that should have been private. The letter's tone shifted from poetic to predatory. References to young blood and bringing the house back to life read like something from a horror novel, not a suburban mailbox. Maria's hand shook as she read. This wasn't a welcome note. This was a threat wrapped in pleasantries, a warning disguised as an introduction. The second letter arrived within days, then a third, each one more personal, more invasive, more frightening. The watcher's words. The watcher described where the children played, what rooms the family used, his apparent jealousy of the house itself. "It has been the subject of my family for decades," he repeated. He spoke of 657 Boulevard as if it were alive. "It cries for the past and what used to be. It needs young blood. It needs you to bring it back." The tone shifted from poetic to threatening. "You have changed it and made it so fancy. You are stealing its history. It cries for the past and what used to be." The Broaddeuces stopped sleeping. They installed cameras. They stopped bringing their kids inside. No fingerprints, no useful surveillance footage. The letters kept coming. The watcher's language was both archaic and modern, formal yet intimate. He wrote like someone from another era, yet demonstrated knowledge of contemporary renovation plans and family dynamics. Most disturbing was his apparent surveillance. He described which windows the children looked out of, which rooms lights were on in the evening, which cars were parked in the driveway on specific days. "I see you have children," one letter read. "I hope they are learning to be good little children." The house itself seemed to be the watcher's primary obsession. He personified it, speaking of its needs and desires as if it were a living entity requiring care and feeding. "The house is hungry," he wrote. "It has been waiting for the right family to fill it with life again." His anger about the renovations was palpable. He viewed any changes as desecration, any modernization as an attack on the house's historical integrity. The psychological impact was devastating. The Broaddeuces installed security systems but found no evidence of trespassers. They hired security guards, but the letters continued arriving. Sleep became impossible. Every sound was suspicious, every shadow a potential threat. The investigation. The Westfield police launched a full investigation. They interviewed neighbors, ran DNA tests, checked postal records. Nothing. A neighbor next door was briefly considered a suspect, a man who was eccentric and known for unusual behavior, but no evidence tied him to the letters. Then attention turned to a woman in the neighborhood who was obsessed with old homes. She also came up clean. The case stalled. The Broaddeuces hired private investigators, forensic linguists, and even a former FBI agent. All they got were theories. Some believed it was a neighbor angry about the renovations. Others believed it was a cruel prank from someone who knew too much. Some even accused the Broaddeuces themselves of fabricating the story to get out of a mortgage they couldn't afford. But no motive was ever confirmed, and the letters? They never stopped. The investigation consumed resources and time. Police interviewed over 100 neighbors, analyzed handwriting samples, and processed potential DNA evidence from the letters. The postmarks were local, but that provided no useful leads. The paper and typewriter were common brands, impossible to trace. Several neighbors fell under suspicion. One elderly man was known for odd behavior and had made comments about the house's history. But polygraph tests were inconclusive, and no physical evidence connected him to the letters. A woman who worked for the local historical society and had strong opinions about preserving old homes also became a person of interest. Her passion for historical preservation seemed to match the watcher's obsession, but again, no evidence emerged. The Broaddeuces spent thousands on private investigators and forensic experts. Linguistic analysis suggested the writer was educated, possibly elderly, with a deep knowledge of the neighborhood's history. But theories weren't facts, and suspicions weren't evidence. Meanwhile, public opinion began to turn. Some neighbors grew tired of the investigation's intrusion. Others whispered that the Broaddeuces were somehow behind the letters themselves, perhaps to escape a mortgage they couldn't afford. The pressure was mounting from all sides, but the watcher remained invisible. The escape and aftermath. After renting the home briefly, they sold it in 2019 at a loss. They were harassed online, called scammers, liars, but the letters kept coming, even to their tenants. Netflix adapted the story into a mini-series, but the truth remains elusive. The watcher was never identified, no one was arrested, and the house at 657 Boulevard, it still stands, quiet. But someone, somewhere, might still be watching. The psychological toll was unbearable. The Broadduses couldn't bring their children to the house. Every renovation plan was abandoned. Their dream home became a source of terror. They attempted to rent the property, but the letters continued arriving, now addressed to the tenants. The watcher seemed to know about every occupant, every change, every attempt to move forward. Legal battles followed. The Broadduses sued the previous owners, claiming they should have disclosed the harassment. The case was eventually dismissed. Financial ruin loomed. The family had invested everything in the house but couldn't live there. Insurance wouldn't cover their losses. The property value plummeted as the story went public. Online harassment compounded their misery. Skeptics accused them of fabricating the letters for financial gain. Conspiracy theorists dissected every detail of their story. In 2019, they finally sold the house for $400,000 less than they'd paid. The new owners were aware of the history, but hoped the watcher's obsession had ended. It hadn't. The Netflix series The Watcher brought renewed attention to the case in 2022, but also renewed harassment for the family. The Watcher case remains one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries in modern American crime. Not because of physical violence, but because of the psychological warfare waged against an innocent family. Today, 657 Boulevard stands quietly on its tree-lined street. New owners have made it their home. Children play in the yard. Life continues. But somewhere in Westfield, or perhaps somewhere else entirely, the watcher might still be out there, watching, waiting, riding. The letters may have stopped, but the questions remain. And sometimes the most terrifying mysteries are the ones that never get solved. If you enjoyed this episode, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to help our channel grow. See you on the next episode.